You see, now this is exactly what people are looking for. Ronna McDaniel finally announced her resignation. Finally. The question is, why was it the right thing to do? Well, very simply because Ronna McDaniel sucked at her job. She was horrible at fundraising, horrible at generating enthusiasm, and of course, horrible in terms of logistics. Spending money where it needed to be spent, coming up with a good, coherent strategy to actually win an election. I mean, crazy stuff, I know. As the RNC chair, your job is to essentially win elections, or create the groundwork to win elections, especially during times where Republicans are polling so well and victory is essentially written in stone. But of course, every single time Ronna McDaniel failed, she didn't get the job done. And so, of course, the very simple request that we were hearing from Republican voters was for her to resign so she could be replaced with somebody who could get the job done. And of course, the name that keeps popping up as an example of how the job should be done, or the kind of person, or maybe literally the person who should be in the position, that name is of course Scott Presler, and this is exactly frickin' why. This is what people want. This is how it's done. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, this right here is why Scott Presler should be officially leading on-the-ground efforts to get Donald Trump elected as the 47th president of the United States.
Harris County, Texas ran out of paper ballots on what day? Election day. Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, Republican County, ran out of paper ballots on what day? Election day. Adam Laxalt lost by 8,000 votes in Nevada. It snowed in Washoe County and Reno because our people, we like to live in the mountains. We're mountain folk. It snowed on what day? Election day. So the Democrats, they weren't freaking out. They weren't panicking. They had already ballot harvested. They had already early voted. They already mailed in their votes. And Republicans were going, guys, please, I know it's snowing. Please go vote. Imagine what we could have done stopping the Democrats from having a majority right now, defeating an incumbent Democratic senator in the state of Nevada. And so I am calling for an all-of-the-above approach to voting. Yes, we're going to do election day voting, but we are going to use the tools of the Democrats to elect Republicans. We are going to early vote. We are going to go in person. We are going to do mail-in voting. We are going to do absentee ballots. And we are going to have ballot boxes at churches and gun shows. Who can play at this game?
I mean, he has got the it factor. I know some people dislike Scott Presler because of his personal life, the way he identifies. Sure, I don't want the conversation to head towards that direction at all. So let's focus on ability here. Scott Presler has the ability to get the job done. And at the end of the day, that's the only freaking thing that matters. There is nobody more passionate, more active in their organizing and activism on the Republican side than Scott Presler. You literally tweet at Scott Presler and say something, and 99% of the time he responds. I think 2 or 2.5 years ago, I tweeted something along the effect of Scott Presler's doing a great job, and he instantly replied to it, followed me back, and then a couple months ago I did the same thing, and the same thing happened. He instantly responds. Why is that important? Well, it's important because it shows how active he is. He is on the ball with every trend, with anybody who's interested in registering to vote, or getting active, doing door knocking. He is literally, chronically on his phone, or on his computer, working tirelessly every single day to mobilize an effort to get Donald Trump reelected.
And I'm doing my part to help our country because I give a damn and I'm going to fight for it, and I am 100% voting for Donald Trump.
Nobody else does it the way that he does it. And currently he's trying to have an effect in Pennsylvania, again mobilizing a huge on-the-ground effort to register the Amish vote to vote for Donald Trump. Who else is doing that? What did Ronna McDaniel do? Waste funds on floral arrangements so she could cater to the donor class? Fancy cocktails and galas, but no actual valuable work. Wasted money. We all remember covering the accounting of the RNC. She wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars being spent on travel and other nonsense. Anytime the RNC chair was needed, Ronna McDaniel was MIA. When the Trump indictments hit, she didn't mobilize a massive fundraising campaign in defense of Donald Trump. She did nothing. She didn't have the courage to stand up to the establishment GOP powers that be. She didn't have the courage to stand up to her Uncle Mitt. That's the reality. And she didn't have the charisma or the energy to do what Scott Presler is doing. When have you ever seen a video of Ronna McDaniel really hyping up a crowd, really engaging and generating momentum and enthusiasm, focused on competing with the Democrats and mobilizing effective election strategy, like getting out early vote and mail-in ballots? If Democrats are going to do it, then so should Republicans. That's what Scott Presler is focused on. Meanwhile, Ronna McDaniel did very little to have a significant early vote impact in the coming general. Now, I don't know if Scott Presler should or even wants to be the RNC chair, but in some fashion, in some way, the RNC must engage with Mr. Presler. They absolutely need to do it. He can't just be present at CPAC or present on Twitter doing his own thing. He needs to be leading a team with full funding. It's something Ronna McDaniel should have done years ago. The RNC is pulling in millions of dollars in fundraising. Sure, they're at historic lows and they're not doing great and it's mostly going to Trump's PAC, but even with record low fundraising, we're talking about millions of dollars. I think right now the RNC has, $7 or so million in the bank, just sitting in the coffers. That's a big amount of dollar. Why did we never see a dime mobilized to fund Scott Presler initiatives? Well, very simply, the people in charge at the time, or they've been actively working to sabotage anything even remotely connected to MAGA or this grassroots new conservative movement. And so it was a purposeful decision to not incorporate Scott Presler into the strategy. That must end today. There is nobody who has proved themselves to be more effective on the ground in terms of registering people to vote than Mr. Presler.
Thank you, Raheem. Great job. Scott Presler, fantastic. Thank you, Scott.
There is nobody who understands where people are at in the most important, most competitive districts, most competitive states than Scott Presler. There is nobody who has more interpersonal relationships with activists and organizers on the ground than Scott Presler does. You know, in a real meritocratic system, if it was about generating sales and generating dollars, Scott Presler at this point would probably be the freaking CEO. But of course, in the world of politics, where entitlement runs rampant, where you have these slimy politicians and politically connected elite who want so desperately to cling on to power, well, in that environment, the exact opposite happens. Scott Presler isn't viewed as an asset, but rather he's viewed as a threat to their power. He's doing a better job than us, and he's representing an initiative that may represent the American constituents or Republican constituents, but it doesn't represent our interests, what Mitt Romney, the Bushes, and the Cheneys want, so we're going to purposely exclude him. That's what's been happening, and it's time today that stopped. It's time to put together a winning strategy, but most importantly, it's time to put together a winning system, and that system should absolutely start with heavy Scott Presler involvement. He is the guy for the job, the guy who can get it done, and he has proven that over the years. It's time to win, and the way you win is by putting the people who have a history of getting the job done in leadership positions. That's pretty much it. That's the video. I am a Scott Presler shill. If you guys are on the bandwagon, then let's shill together. That's what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.